Hello. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Victor Plays. Yes, hey, look at that, we're not playing Life is Strange. That is, in and of itself, a bit of an event, given that we have been playing Life is Strange quite a bit recently. But tonight we are playing not Life is Strange, but World End ECONOMiCA. Episode 1, as it were. And that is because, at the time of decisioning, which was roughly about an hour ago, World End ECONOMiCA was at the top of the Victor Plays leaderboard. Though it was not shortly after the picking. As of right now, on the Victor Plays leaderboard, which you can find a link to in the description below, What very shortly thereafter superseded it was Trine with 1,426 votes. So, ta-da! Guess what we're playing next week. Unless, of course, contention happens and something bumps Trine down. That shall not stand, says J Vance. Yes. I have photographic evidence to prove it. There was no chicanery on my part, not this time. But yes, there is, yeah, that's just how it was. This is, yeah, I'll just, let me see if I can't. Where's that thing here? There we go. Let's see if we can. There we go. Oh, not that one. That's kind of ridiculous. Here. There you go. World End ECONOMiCA episode 1 was at the top, beating out Trine by 1 vote. Yeah, well, 'tis the way of the sea, as it were. So, and it is done for now. Let's see where we're at now. 1,426 goes sound of drop fall into poison. Well, we'll just have to see what comes next week. First, we have things to do. Yes, things indeed. We've got, what do we got anyways? We've got to post a link to this to the Facebook page. That's what we've got to do. I find it ever so difficult at times to remember to do the whole social media thing. I am rather bad at it. If I had the financial wherewithal, I would definitely hire a social media manager for Frostworks. Let's see here. Facebook. Let's do the Facebook thing. Let's see here. Let's see here. Did that get a link? J-Bands. We're playing and ECONOMiCA tonight. Let's see then. And post. Ah, itchy nose. Blah. And then, actually. Boop. There we go. Beep. And I should tag. Can I tag Frostworks in a personal Facebook post? Maybe. Nope, can't do it. Can't do it. Not today. Not happening. How many people are having birthdays today? That's a lot of birthdays. Wow. 5 of my friends have birthdays in one day. What are the odds? Huh. Anywho. Where'd that buzz come from? Weird. Anywho. Yeah, there's that weird buzz. Hang on. Odd. Alright, well, we are playing World End ECONOMiCA today, but before we get to playing that, it is time to do the thing that is, a joy and a pleasure to do, and that is to thank our wonderful Patreon supporters. Yes, our Patreon supporters, the people who throw a little bit of money into the hat each month, one for helping make this channel chooch. Yes, our Patreon supporters. Without their generous support, we would not be able to pay for some of the regular expenses of this channel, which include things like Adobe Creative Cloud, our Backblaze backup, which makes sure that even if my house catches on fire, we may be down and not able to produce media immediately, but at least we won't lose anything. And of course, Crunchyroll subscription, which I'm using to write scripts for a new show and to do the pre-production for it. Lots of stuff in the pipeline. I'm sorry, I'm working very hard to get things out. I've got a video I'm working to get out, a client thing I'm working on, video I'm working to get out, client thing to get done. I have a backlog of Friday Night Party Line and Acceptable Vices episodes to edit going back to January. Oh, God. I wish life wouldn't get in the way so much. Anywho. But anyways, thanks to all of our Patreon supporters. At least I have the software to make doing this stuff possible. So, thank you to Kate Macross, Rochelle Mantanona, the Geek Nights Podcast, Funeral Cleavage, Dexter Colder, I'm used to saying Dexter Colder before Jay Bance, who's in the chat right now. George Davison, our first Patreon supporter, Zara Gorgian. Oh, Jay Bance is our latest Patreon supporter. George Davison, our first Patreon supporter, Zara Gorgian, Aaron Cerise, Ethan Fryer, Pinup Citizen, Gin Moreno, and Neon for their generous support in helping this channel. If you would like to become a Patreon supporter, there is a link in the description below. But if you'd like to support this channel on a one-off basis, you can always do something like doing a super chat, which is a way to make your chats go by attaching basically some money to them. You can do anywhere from $1 to I think the limit is $500, but for the love of God, don't do $500. If you can throw $500 at me in one go, you should be giving that money to, like, I don't know, the American Cancer Association or I don't know, St. Jude's or something. Oh, Christ. Anywho, World End ECONOMiCA. World End Necronomicon. Economicon. There's that weird buzz again. I don't know if that's part of the... What is this here? Quality avatar. Okay. This is pudding. J-Vance, you send me the weirdest stuff. Anywho, let's get going. Let's see. Oh, there's configuration. Display mode, perfect. Background volume, good. Language is in English. That's important. All right, everything looks good. Window transparency. What can we do with the window transparency? Can we... I don't know what we're doing. I don't know what this does. Oh, hang on. What does that do? I don't know what that does. So I'm just gonna leave it set at like 100. Let's reset the default. Yes. That's fine. I don't know what that does. All right, let's go. Tired of this music. By the way, how am I sounding? You guys sometimes let me go on and on with really bad sounding audio, and I did a test before and it sounded okay, but how do I sound at the moment? Good. That's what I like to hear. All right, let's go. In the past, people really believed that there was a doorway to an alternate world on the dark side of the moon. This dark side could not be seen from Earth, and it was only a few decades ago that images were successfully taken of it. As Earth had been visited, mapped, and divested of all of its mysteries and secrets, it was made painfully clear that there were no rabbits on the moon, no traces of aliens, and certainly no pieces of portals to alternate worlds. You know, I think I gotta make the text speed a lot faster. Here we go. This was perhaps why the journey to the dark side of the moon through the vastness of space was so fascinating for me when my parents took me there as a kid. Mankind had never set foot upon any of the glittering stars that were arrayed before me. When I realized that, I felt a desire to leave my footprints where no one had gone before. It wasn't until after I learned more about that world that it dawned on me what a foolhardy dream that was. Regardless, it was something that shook me to the core so much that I nearly wet my pants. Afterwards, everything before me became a stepping stone in my mind, towards my dream of setting foot where no one had gone before. I had no time to waste. If I didn't act now, then someone else would leave their footprints there first. Faster. Faster. Much faster. The population continued to grow, and time ruthlessly slipped away. Only a handful could be the vanguard of it all. Not a day went by where I didn't ponder what I could see. It would be a new frontier where familiar places, customs, and the past would not exist. A frontier where every small movement I made would become a part of history. The footprints of the first humans on the moon could still be found preserved in the Sea of Tranquility Memorial Hall. Those footprints told uncountable tales. Footprints left in the sand, measuring just shy of 30 inches. Even so, they were amazing footprints that sent shivers down my spine. With a click, my mobile PC turned on. I woke to the whirring of the hard drive. Since I had fallen asleep curled up in my chair while clutching my PC, it was difficult to get my body to move. My body felt so stiff, I was sure that a careless motion would break something. Even so, I rather enjoyed the sensation of slowly stretching out my limbs from this cramped position after waking up. It made me feel alive, and truly let me know that I was awake. Hey, Yoddle! I willed my arms to move, then my legs. I gotta wonder where that buzz is coming from. Is it the creative interface that's maybe having an issue? Maybe. Next time I'm gonna try to see if I can rush to hit the mute button and see if that's the issue. Alright. Although hardly efficient, this was how I chose to do things. And what was happened when I woke up every morning. Huh. Okay, well, whatever. It was a satisfying action, and one I never had a chance to savor before I left home. On the top of the table, I had left my rather crude diode lamp on. Wait, diode lamp? Like an LED? Like a light emitting diode? Okay, anywho. On the top of the table, I had left my rather crude diode lamp on, and a coarse layer of fat had formed on the surface of the leftover coffee in my dirty cup. What kind of coffee are you drinking that there's a coarse layer of fat? What is that kind of coffee? Like, at the worst, if I leave my coffee cup sitting with coffee in it, there'll be like a thin film of the oil that's in coffee, right? Like the oil will kind of rise to the top of the cup, and you know, just a very thin little imperceptible layer of oil. But fat? A coarse layer of fat? Ugh. Jeez, man. Peach seltzer water for the curious. Beside my cup was a half-eaten chocolate bar, which I reached for and crammed into my mouth. Oh. Oh. What do you mean there are people who put butter in their coffee? Hold on. Oh, it is coming from this creative interface. That's not like in my DAW or anything. That's crazy. Huh. Wait, hold on. What do you mean there are people who put butter in coffee? That's... How do you do... Why would anybody do that? That sounds god-awful. That sounds terrible. Oh, gross. Nasty. I swallowed the unpleasantly sweet chunk as the PC finished booting up. Why would you eat something that's unpleasant? This person sounds like a fat, greasy nerd in front of their PC. Like, there's nothing wrong with being fat. I mean, it to a degree, it's unhealthy, but this, like, they're drinking fatty, like they're drinking coffee that has been clearly sitting for too long with congealed fat on the top of it, and then shoving an old chocolate bar into their mouth. It feels like that South Park nerd stereotype, and that's really bad. Oh, jeez. At that moment, my brain went to work as I verified that I had my wallet, memory cards, and a bag on me, and that none of it had been stolen while I was asleep? Is he not home? Wait. Where the hell is this person? It appeared that I had survived the previous night. Only then did I breathe a sigh of relief. However, in order for me to survive today, I would have to make some money. Is this person homeless? What? Hold on a second. Hold on. This is why we need some establishing shots or something so we know what we're getting into. It had been 3 months and 12 days since I left home. Telling myself that I wasn't just some well-to-do kid pretending to be a ruffian, I flipped open the organic display. You mean like an OLED? Or is it a leaf? There's a net cafe. I was staying in a cheap net cafe. I'm going to turn this volume down a little bit so because it's all getting sort of equalized together. I was staying in a cheap net cafe. It was a good-for-nothing establishment that leached Wi-Fi from another shop, and its customers were of equally questionable quality. Hey kid, fine morning, isn't it? As I left the booth to go wash my face, an unkempt clerk greeted me as he played a game at the counter. I figured he wasn't so much being friendly as much as he was making sure I knew he was watching me. The only entrance and exit were next to the counter, and off to the side on the wall were the words, "Everyone pays, no freeloaders." Even though this sad excuse for a building was built in a sewage canal, money was always collected. The only thing that concerned me when I left home was finding a place to sleep. Though I had some money, I couldn't really change my appearance. A fine morning? I'm not fond of your sarcasm, Earth Dog. Wow! I called him an Earth Dog. That's like, I don't know, that feels like an insult to me, based on context clues. The clerk's face twisted into a smile at my retort. Oh, it's unfortunate to not know what a real morning looks like since the weather here is just a computer program. He said that lightly as he returned his gaze to his game. He seemed to be from Earth, though I wondered if he came to the moon as an unskilled labor, got fired, and ended up here as an outcast of some sort. That was an interestingly crafted sentence. Why didn't you head on back to Earth then? At my words, he turned briefly to glance at me and laughed sarcastically. Things are a bit better here than down there anyhow. That's how he responded. Moon scum. Without responding, I went to the washroom. My name's Yoshiharu Kawaura. Kawaura? Yoshihara Kawaura. Kawaura. Kawaura? Kawaura? Kawaura. Kawaura. Is that like, how do you even pronounce that? I need some. How do you pronounce that? Oh, cool. Oh. That's cool. Kawaura. Kawaura, I guess. I was born and raised in this lunar city, so I was genuine moon scum. I returned to my booth, entered my password. No, it's definitely pronounced. And booted up the tool application on my computer. A welcome screen. This music is obnoxious. A welcome screen whose only good point was its friendliness was followed by a merciless and desolate landscape, much akin to the surface of the moon. Countless lines of words flickered on the screen. I imagine it's the kind of effect you'd get if you took a picture of the undeveloped part of the moon's surface with a low-res camera. The screen showed a set. Look! Show! Don't tell! Just show us what it is! Stop trying to describe something weird! The screen showed a session of the Lunar Stock Exchange. This was the kind of place for moon scum like me to make a living. I'll get rich without needing to break a sweat. I didn't have enough time to earn an honest living. I took a deep breath and went about business. Downward revision for the first fiscal quarter of CK Bio. Possibility of an investigation into Emerald Industries over suspicions of collusion regarding inflation. The board of directors of the Lunar Central Bank. Okay, so, for those of you who don't monitor the financial world, a downward revision typically happens after a company releases the financial information for a quarter. So apparently CK Bio released... Dustin says, what do you get when you cross a cow with an octopus? Bing! I don't know. What do you get when you cross a cow with an octopus? There you go. So, CK Bio apparently released... CK Bio, for their first quarter, released a report giving a number for their profit and giving numbers for their profits and losses, which in the end totals up to their, they're basically their ideally a profit number for their first quarter. But companies can then go back and revise that figure once more solid numbers come through. Usually the number they give in the report is a estimate. So a downward revision basically said downward revision basically says, yeah, things weren't as good as we had hoped. Which typically results in lower in falling stocks, basically. So, what do you get when you cross a cow with an octopus? A meeting with the ethics committee and swift removal of your research funding. Apparently. Let's see. Suspicions of collusion. With one eye on the stream that was new. With one eye on that stream of news, I focused on managing 220 stocks, picking up those with large price fluctuations. So wait a minute, managing 220 stocks. That's a decent portfolio. For instance, if one stock had moved 10% on the previous day and another had moved 1%, there was probably a high chance that the stock that moved 10% could move by 1% today. I would trade it on that notion alone. Within the turbulent up and down movement of the price, I could extract some profit, which is what I occupied myself between 9 AM and 5 PM lunar time. Between those hours, the only things that went into my mouth were food that I could eat one-handed and drinks. To be honest, I'd be so engrossed in trading that breaks were uncommon. Okay, why would you do that manually? This is the future. You can set automatic. You must have some kind of bot that can do automatic trading. I mean, high frequency trading occurs today, like now. It's happening. Why would you need to manually do that? I'm already having problems with this game. Even if I had the free time to take a break, I'd rather use it to look at my screen to track price fluctuations and do some trades. After all, a difference of a few minutes when making the call to buy or sell could easily mean the difference between gaining or losing 1 or 2%. But you could set thresholds and patterns. Why? My war chest was 72,000 mools, which I guess must be moon money. 1% of that came out to 700 mools. A store clerk here would make 7 mools an hour at best. This was a place where a public school teacher's monthly starting salary was 1,200 mools. So I could make in a few minutes what they'd make in a month. Wait a minute, hold on a second. If your war chest was 70,000 mools, you have several years worth of teacher salary. Why are you homeless? God damn. Of course, over the course of a day's trading, some people'd win and others would lose. But I was on the winning streak of all streaks, and before I knew it, my seed money of 1,000 mools had ballooned to 72 times that. The one and only time I did honest hard labor in my life was to build that seed money. Since then, I'd just been building my assets through these trades. While the gains were a little less than what they used to be, the greater your assets grew, the faster they grew. So it didn't worry me. What am I looking at here? Okay, this is a video. I'm gonna watch it later. Let's see here. It'd be what they'd call a snowball effect. I'd never seen snow before, but I'd seen videos of Earth before, and thus I was familiar with it. Yeah, so the more money... So this is something I'm actually really familiar with. So if you do safe trading, like really safe trading, you can easily turn a little bit of money into more money. And the more money you have, the bigger the trades you can make. This is something I learned very quickly in the economics, in my economic study of Animal Crossing with the stock market. I feel like I'm gonna have a lot to talk about this game just because it's talking about economics, and I'm pretty familiar with it. Anyways, I decided that I was gonna make even more money and then live in the center of this lunar city. It's a place where tons of ridiculously smart people were gathered. It's said that 70% of this world's wealth was held by people there. I'd live it up there, and then, the back of my head was high on these kinds of delusions as I performed trade after trade like a man possessed. That's why it took me a while to notice. I finally did after I got smacked on the head. Tja! Yo, kid. I turned around to see that clerk from before standing in front of the booth's open door. What? You want money? Since when did this place become prepay? Or was it something else? Was making money not allowed here? What do you want? I'm busy. I glared at him. The overly skinny, bleary-eyed clerk let out a tired sigh. That's your reply? I came here to tell you that the police are on their way to gather up street urchins and... Before the clerk finished his sentence, my PC had been closed and thrown into my bag. Hey, wait! The employee grabbed my shoulder as I tried to push him aside and exit the booth. Though he was thin, he was still muscular, strong enough to remind you that he was an adult. Still, I always kept a set amount of money in my breast pocket for times like this. I grabbed it and thrust it into his hands. Keep the change. I put on my hat, shouldered my bag, and ran down a narrow corridor. Wondering what was going on in the booth, a bunch of guys who looked like they'd just mumble useless replies to any police questioning peeked through the cracks from their booths, wondering if someone had been arrested. There's a tree root coming. Oh, because it's in sewers, right. After sliding past the dirty counter, I made it to the store's even filthier exit. The chipped away paint and rust made the already cramped building feel even more claustrophobic. I ran straight down the hallway towards the open air. There were stairs if I turned left at the end of the hall, but never had any plans to use them in the first place. Without a moment's hesitation, I kicked off the floor, jumping as high as I could, passing over the concrete wall. My body flew over the street. Because the cafe was on the 5th floor of the building, there was a heck of a view below me. I jumped towards the wall of the building opposite me and then kicked off of that wall, aiming back towards the wall of the first building. Once the soul... Can we not get any graphics for this? Once the sole of my foot hit a pipe on the wall, I jumped straight up with all my strength and resolve. Human genes had been fine-tuned for living on Earth over millions of years, so with some weight training, anyone could perform feats like these on the moon, where gravity was lower. Yeah, the 5th floor of the sewer, that's the even better question. What you couldn't do was allow yourself to miss your daily training. Jumping from wall to wall, I quickly reached the 14th floor of the building next door. 14th floor? How low do these sewers go? I guess my heart rate did go up a bit. I glanced down to see a pair of blue uniformed policemen looking bored as they tapped their batons on their shoulders and climbed the stairs. It seemed that clerk wasn't playing a prank on me when he gave me that tip. I already paid my thanks to him when I handed him that money, though. By now, he should have probably already used the change from it to kick back with a store-bought beer. For a moment, I opened up my bag in the hallway and flipped open my PC screen. I ran off in the middle of a trade, so my position hadn't changed. I should be able to get at least a weak wireless connection out here. If I were lucky, prices would have risen and I'd be home free. But usually, at times like this... Figures. After hanging my head in disappointment, I closed out my losing positions and called it a day. Nothing good can come from wandering around downtown in the middle of the day. After jumping from one building to the next, I decided to walk down a deserted hallway towards my favorite Chinese restaurant. It was the time of day when most people my age would be at school, so walking around carelessly would get you chased down by the cops before you knew it. Until you turned 18, the legal age here, it was mandatory that you belonged to some sort of educational institution. Some people would say that this was a good thing, while others grumbled something about government-funded programs. I fell into neither camp. My way of dealing with systems I didn't like was to quietly escape them, not to loudly criticize them. On that note, this area, with all of its complicated passages and extreme elevation changes, it's not odd to see the 7th floor of one building be next to the basement of another, was convenient for people like me. Not to mention the overgrown vegetation here and there that acted as good cover. These plants weren't originally included in the city plans, but had leaked out of one of many lunar laboratories where they were messing with their genes. Supposedly, the genes had tons of factors that express themselves differently depending on the environment, so a lot of plants and animals started acting strangely as soon as they were brought to the moon. There were even people saying that life forms on Earth could have originated from outer space and brought to Earth via the moon. Some of these plants grew so well on the moon's inorganic matter that you might wonder if they'd been around here for 1,000,000 years. Of course, it wasn't as if these plants were free from the laws of physics. Nitrogen and other nutrients for them were brought over from Earth. So I hadn't heard about any worries that the surface of the moon would be taken over by the greenery. Like anybody would be worried about that? This applied to more than just plants. As for the humans here, it didn't matter how many ultra-elite think tanks came to energize the lunar economy and its industries, life here just wasn't sustainable without sending a lot of things over from Earth. A According to the government standards, even if the orbital elevator were to stop moving today, it was currently enough on. They'd be able to make a ton of electricity with solar panels while collecting direct sunlight to use as a super hot source of heat. So maybe they're right. I mean, people even say that Earth was in more danger environmentally since they're still relying on oil and nuclear power. I don't know who was right. Whatever the case, I had dreams, and if it meant making my dreams come true, I didn't care if I was on Earth or the moon. After all, my dream was to stand at the forefront of humanity. It'd be a place where you could only look forward and live by advancing onward. Who cared about what happened to the world behind you? Kids. And if I couldn't make this dream come true, then there'd be no reason for me to live. That was why, to put it logically, I never worried a single bit about the moon's environment or whatever. What I worried about was how much money I made or how fast I reached my goals. Ladies and gentlemen, unchecked capitalism. While I was thinking about these things, I passed through a thickly vegetated tunnel towards the high ground. Man, look at them solar panels. It was a clear day, as it always was. On the other side of the translucent membrane, the visible half of the mist-covered Earth looked small. The sky over Lunar City was wrapped in a see-through dome, and right beyond it was outer space. Gravity was weak on the moon, so you couldn't naturally keep large amounts of gases stored up on the surface. Also, while apparently each 24-hour day on Earth had morning, afternoon, and night, which was followed the next day by another morning, the moon alternated between 2-week days and 2-week nights. However, the human body cycle was set differently, thanks to tens of thousands of years of living on Earth. Because most of the people living on the moon were immigrants from Earth, its dome was adjusted to give off light in an Earth-like way. It even had sprinklers attached to it so that it would rain. However, I'd only seen things like downpours and thunderstorms in videos. When it rained here, it was always just a drizzle. Strong winds never blew here. The only winds felt here were the slow coiling movement of the atmosphere due to the centrifugal and Coriolis forces, as well as the what do you mean it's not receiving data from things coming through? Okay. Not receiving data from my encoder. That's weird. Huh. I kicked off a tree branch and rotated my body to land on the top of the tunnel. This was a box seat where apparently I clicked right past the dialogue. Here we go, backlog. This was a box seat where you can look down on the greater part of this city. Good lord, I'm skipping dialogue here. I grabbed some beef jerky out of my bag and bit into it. According to the guys who came from Earth, this wasn't at all close to the real thing, but it's the only beef jerky I knew. There were a number of cities on the moon. The one I lived in was the very first city to be created, and I could get a clear view of the whole thing from here. The spot in front of me where pointed skyscrapers sprung upward one after the other was called Newton's City. It wasn't like entry here was regulated. However, it had the feel of a special zone where only certain people could enter, since it was full of giant corporate buildings. Even public places like shopping malls and parks were overrun with police and city regulations. Most wealth here was created in Neutron City. Most wealth here was created in Newton City, and you could find famous tycoons with assets worth over 10 billion mools all over the place. If you had that much wealth, you'd undoubtedly be able to be on the forefront when humanity took its next step. Money could make just about any desire you might have in this world come true. In this world, Money ruled all. Okay, we've been doing this for like a half hour now. Where's the inciting incident? Where is some change happening in this person's life that's going, come on, we need some story here. It's pissing me off. Like a photograph of the moment a drop of liquid hit a pool of water, a group of skyscrapers stood in the dead center of Newton City, while the buildings around that area were suddenly much shorter. That area was where middle-class people who worked in Newton City lived. That area was where middle-class people who worked in Newton City lived in was called Green City. Seems to be going in and out, huh? Weird. This sentence is very poorly crafted. Okay, fine. It was a place full of people who loved words like high society and refinement. The kind of people who claimed to care about grace and harmony, but were really full of nothing but pride and obsessions with upward mobility. Whenever I went there, I felt sick seeing the sterilized rows of small, nicely manicured lawns and white-walled buildings. There wasn't a single piece of garbage on the streets, and the only plants around were domesticated trees on the roadside. After that, the buildings in the area around Green City got taller again, but it was a complete jumble. There, power lines dangled messily onto the streets, and vulgar neon signs lit the area, painting the whole place with a feel of squalor. So, Michael, it could be a storm or outside your area, but it could be the fire that is outside of my area. Who can say? Anywho. The area was called the Outer Sections, and while technically they'd all been numbered from 1 to 8, there was no real point. If you considered Newton City the center of everything, the north was full of factories. There, you could find silicon dioxide dissolution factories, fertilizer synthesis factories, automated plantations, and so on. On the east side was the village where I lived. That area was notorious for its hard-nosed residents. You could also find settlements of old-timers whom you might call artisans in the area, which made for a countless number of small workshops. Very much reminiscent of the micro-manufacturing type areas in urban Japan. Anywho. Most people didn't have the luxury of being able to do something like transport wooden furniture via orbital elevator, and land was expensive on the moon, so the houses of Green City were small. As a result, handmade furniture created with the size and shape of your house in mind was far more popular than ready-made furniture. I was told that my parents were aiming to live together with plants brought from Earth in exchange for making furniture out of wood. What? I was told that my parents were aiming to live together with plants brought from Earth in exchange for making furniture out of wood. Okay. Even though factories existed, seemed to at least have their customers, but I didn't see a single enjoyable thing about being covered in dirt. It just made me wonder why they even came to the moon in the first place. This wasn't a place for stuff like that. The moon was supposed to be a place where you directed your gaze to the top of the inorganic buildings that lined Newton City. And if I shifted my eyes to the left, I saw an area haunted by those who couldn't keep up in that struggle. Here, when buildings started rusting, no one would bother to repaint them. It had been nicknamed the Red Valley. The reason it was called a valley was because when Newton City was originally built on a flat crater floor, all of the low-income earners made the Rocky Mountains surrounding the city their home. And by Rocky Mountains, I didn't quite mean something like the harsh mountainous environments you might find on Earth. It was actually closer to what you might call highlands. As a result, the rock was chipped away to increase surface area like a river eroding hills, and many structures could be built in a tight area by terracing the slopes. Furthermore, more space was secured by digging caves into the rocky stretches. It was clearly evident that doing this over and over made for a mess of a city. Not much more than a decade had passed since the city's establishment, and it had already become such a devilish haunt that you wouldn't blame the local government if they just threw up their hands and gave up. As for me, I liked the Red Valley with its level squalor. While it was true that people living there could be called outcasts and failures, the place was irresponsible in a good way, and that put me at ease. Of course, I had no intentions of becoming the 20% that lived there. And finally, the area around where I was right now was called the 6th Outer Section. It was not as degenerate as the Red Valley, but it was not quite as productive as the east side of town. This area didn't have a nickname yet, and its lackadaisical aspects oozed out at every turn. While the buildings were dirty and worn out, it was dotted with small companies who dreamed of Newton City, and the occasional decent-looking house, so it wasn't the worst place to live. I stood up, hopped back down to the street, and jogged off. Well, we had music at one point, but now we don't. Save game. Let's see if we can't get the music back. A tile screen? Okay, we got music back. Nope. Let's load game. Nope, there's literally no music here. No music. Not happening. Not today. Alright, well, there we go. The road was paved with neatly shaved limestone rocks. It was chipped and cracked here and there, but no one ever tried to patch it. The rough dirt of the moon had piled up in its recesses. Waterways were occasionally visible, and in them you could see clear running water, as well as fish swimming. While hydrogen was available on the moon, there was no water. So once hydrogen had been synthesized into water, it was made sure that every drop remained circulating within the dome. The waterway's final destination was a giant water processing plant under Newton City. In other words, everything was designed to gather in the center of the mortar-shaped city, whether it's people, water, or wealth. From there, everything was disseminated outward. After crossing the intricate waterways and bridges, I passed through a narrow alley and reached my destination. It was called the Lunar Chinese Restaurant. It's run by a Chinese couple with a strong spirit of enterprise who emigrated to the moon. I could sit down here from early afternoon to whenever they wouldn't say a word. However, the elderly wife's health had been fading recently, and the woman who sometimes worked at the restaurant in their place was a bit of a pain. While I prayed that she wouldn't be there today, it was in vain, especially on an unlucky day already full of policemen and stock losses. As I opened the frosted glass door, the woman, watching the television placed near the ceiling with her head resting in her arms. Yes, Truba, stocks. With her head resting in her arms propped up on the counter, I lowered her glance listlessly. While I was overcome with the urge to just shut the door and go to another store, the woman raised her voice before I got the chance. Table for one! The kitchen was run by the silent, stubborn, elderly husband of the family, so he never showed any signs of affection. Of course, no reply came from the kitchen. Even so, it was too late to leave, so I entered the store with a heavy gate and set up camp in a corner seat. While mountains of hydrocarbons sat at the moon's poles, they still couldn't be used for luxuries, such as making plastic. As a result, most of the store's equipment was made from either wood or iron. Both could be gathered on the moon and were easily decomposable by microbes when thrown away. Microbes could decompose iron? Okay. An iron cup was placed with a clang on my tattered wooden table, which was no doubt found in a dump somewhere. The woman, beaming, then poured me water from high up. The water seemed like it should splash out, but it all stayed in the now perfectly filled cup. "You showed up, you delinquent!" "Crab omelet over fried rice." I made my order bluntly without a proper reply. "Jackass?" The woman was about 20 years old and had bright, silky hair. She'd been working here. Huh. Oh, I did not know that. Sherba says, yes, they can, in fact. They can. In fact, the Titanic wreck is likely to completely collapse and vanish in the future because of microbes that eat the steel and iron in the hull. Huh. The more you know. The woman was about 20 years old and had bright, silky hair. Potential love interest, perhaps? She had been working here for a while and seemed to know a lot of the customers, so she probably lived in the area. "One crab fried!" What? Why did her character model disappear and then reappear? Whatever. The woman yelled cheerfully towards the kitchen. Then, of all the things she could have done, she sat down across from me. Except her body was off to the side, and her vision was fixed on the TV. She seemed interested in some plot point in the drama she was watching. "I heard that actor there is in the area right now. He's going to negotiate his next title and bask in space at the same time. A beautiful actress from around here is accompanying him." I didn't ask, but she informed me anyway. I ended up glancing at the screen as I silently took my PC out of my bag. "He's a little too handsome, though." While that might be true, I stifled my urge to reply with a "so what" as I placed my PC on the table and switched it on. The PC was loaded up with financial information and charts of historical prices for the 4,000 stocks on the Lunar Stock Exchange. In order to make a profit tomorrow, I had to find my next target. "Oh, want to use our power?" I raised my glance after being asked the question and found my eyes meeting the woman's. She had beautiful almond-shaped eyes that were even brighter in color than her hair. She must have led an easy life, I thought to myself. Her eyes are not brighter in color than her hair. They are decidedly darker. Apparently our protagonist has some form of vision impairment. Nevertheless, it'd be helpful if I could use the restaurant's electricity. Even if I did decide to go back to that half-assed net cafe, the rates were cheaper at night. The problem was that my battery might not last until then. It's the future and your space PC battery can't last all day? Future sucks. I silently took out my adapter and plugged it into the cord that the woman, still seated, had lazily dragged my way with her foot. As I hugged the ground in order to plug my adapter into the outlet, the woman mischievously twitched her toes in the sandals. "Perv." That was what she said to me once I raised my head, but she wasn't even wearing a skirt. Naturally, I ignored it and booted up my PC. "She's flirting with you, you idiot." Okay. After that, the woman stopped messing with me. Oh, come on. Messing with him, see? Huh? And the only sounds in the restaurant were the filtered voices from the television and the swinging pots in the kitchen. This was a quiet area without much foot traffic, and it felt like time passed slowly here. The thing that made me go far out of my way to come here, other than the fact that they wouldn't report me to the cops, was this tranquility. She's married to Jesus, and she ain't no two-timer. Jesus Christ. What did you eat yesterday? Well, it was pretty tranquil until the woman suddenly asked me a question. Oh my God. What did I had to eat yesterday have what I had to eat yesterday have anything to do with you? Oh my God. I feel like we're getting into another classic situation of visual novel protagonist being a jackass. Ugh. I ignored her as I stared at my screen, but she wouldn't stop looking at me. Her face, visible from the corner of my eye, didn't make it look like she was particularly interested in the question, but she wouldn't turn away. Defeated, I raised my glance, and at that moment she grinned. Pasta, I answered, then turned back to my screen. I updated my data while I was in the cafe, so I searched for any corporate news that might affect the market in the next few days. From where? As I clicked my tongue, the woman's smile, as expected, disappeared. She didn't get mad or stand up, though. That doesn't suit you, you know? She said this so seriously that instead of getting mad, I ended up blushing. She's treating me like a complete child. Big Bull Cafe. It was an arrogantly named... Big Bull Cafe. It was an arrogantly named place for a near illegal operation. You see, bulls were symbols of strong markets. For that reason, there were bronze bulls placed in front of the biggest financial districts in the world, like America's Wall Street or the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. So for me, the place was good luck. Huh. So Cyril's handmade pasta. Cyril? Wasn't there a real skinny guy there? The guy that owns the guy who owns the place. Owns the... I was a little heartbroken at those words. I was sure he was some loser who worked there by the hour. But to be the owner of the store, big or small, was a fine example of a capitalist. Not only that, I was heartbroken to hear I was eating his pasta. I mean, it was good. I taught him how to make those. The woman beamed with pride. Wait, if she taught him that... Where did they know each other from? Don't tell me they used to be lovers! As I dreamed up juicy scenarios in my head, I stared vacantly at her face as she turned back to the television. So, was that lunch? Dinner? Huh? Did you eat that for lunch or dinner? I didn't have the slightest idea why she was asking for all these details. It was probably because of some stupid made-for-women horoscope that she watched every day. I bet it was something like, if you ask a boy you meet today what and where he ate for each meal yesterday, your lucky color is yellow and your lucky word is optimism. This guy feels sexist. Dinner. What about lunch? I'd set out to click my tongue, but after being told straight-faced that it didn't suit me, I ended up holding back. The woman might have noticed this fact because she was grinning slightly. I answered her after telling her in my mind to shut up. I didn't eat it. Really? This time I didn't keep myself from clicking my tongue or from getting angry for that matter. Why she wanted to know these things in such detail completely baffled me. And why do you care? Right as I turned her question around on her, a plate of fried rice hit the counter with a thud. The woman stood up and brought the plate over. Then, right as I thought she was going to place it on the table, she kept the plate in her hand and looked down at me. You really didn't eat anything for lunch? As if to show her I was trying my hardest not to click my tongue, I started to scrape my upper lip with my teeth. No, I didn't. I don't eat lunch on weekdays. What about today? Today's an exception, since I was driven out of the cafe at a weird time. So what? Anyways, give me my food that you're just holding there. Eating a proper lunch was something special to me, since I usually only did it on Sunday when the Lunar Stock Exchange was closed. Eating lunch on a weekday was rare. As I glared at the woman, she heaved a small sigh and placed the plate on the table, completely unperturbed. The smell of the sweet and sour sauce whetted my appetite. Damn it, now I kind of want Chinese food. My interest shifted from the now strangely annoying woman's questions to the food in front of me. You need to eat 3 real meals a day. The woman talked to me while standing and staring at me, digging into the fried rice. And eat a little more neatly. Mind your own business. I muttered mentally as I shoved the mountain of fried rice and crab omelet on my spoon and shoved it all into my mouth. The woman sighed and then returned listlessly to her counterside chair. What a cryptic, stupid woman. She's not... for fuck's sake. I focused on my food. See, okay, so I really cannot abide by people who are rude for no reason. There are plenty of very valid reasons to be rude. But this person is just being rude for no real reason, and I cannot abide by that. I focused on my food, stuffing my stomach with such vigor that I barely had time to even sigh. He was worried about the cops because he's for truancy. Truancy was the reason he was worried about the cops. After filling my stomach with fried rice, I ordered the IU jelly, a sweet and sour gelatinous dish. It was unusual to see this dessert around here, but it was definitely delicious, if a little expensive. Since today was a cursed day, I thought it might be just the exorcism I needed. You've got the money, right? The woman doubted me after I made my order, but of course I had enough money to have a regular meal. You could rent a cheap apartment for 400 mules a month, so I could live on my own pretty easily. The reason I actually couldn't was because there weren't any places a minor with no guarantor could rent. I heard that on Earth, people in my situation were sometimes able to make it happen. Unfortunately, lunar cities were only accessible via orbital elevator, and so everyone's identity was known. If I went to rent a house, they'd immediately run my fingerprints and an iris scan and then contact my parents. Unless you were an extraterrestrial, if you're on the moon, they know who you are and where you came from. Wait, so what's the big deal with contacting his parents? Have I ever stiffed you? Just because you've paid in the past doesn't mean you're sure to pay next time. And anyway, you ran away from home, right? You need to take better care of your money. I felt a strange sense of comfort in the fact that her lecture wasn't about my running away itself. And overall, I agreed with the idea that people should take care of their money. You don't have to tell me that. Oh, really? The woman shrugged, and then carried the IU jelly from the counter where it had just appeared. It was hard to argue with her, since I was, in fact, wasting money here. But I was confident that I had more money than anyone else my age. What's more, I'd never gone on a wild spending spree before. The magic of compound interest made the world go around. If 1 mule today turned into 10 in a year, then 3 years after that, it'd be 10,000. Compare that to what my dad would make in his entire life, earning roughly the same amount every month from sweating in the fields to grow vegetables. In 5 years, there'd be no way I'd be eating in a lame restaurant like this. Fuck you. Little hole-in-walls, tiny family-owned businesses and restaurants are amazing. Fuck you. That woman might be making fun of me now, but I'll bet I'd eventually be wearing a stylish suit and living in a high-rise apartment in Newton City. And of course, I was not going to stop there. That wasn't where my dream ended. It's where it began. If you're some rich actor, you might be able to bask in space on the opposite side of the moon with some beautiful woman by your side. But if you're one of the wealthiest here in this lunar city, you could go even further. You could make all the emotions and desires you feel when you look up at space come true. I ate the sweet and sour clump of IU jelly, and as I looked at my screen to choose the tree that would grow me money, I was immersed in a familiar daydream. This place was the forefront of humanity, a golden city of wealth and prosperity. I would run through the city's gates. I'd outwit the geniuses and prodigies. I'd outwit the geniuses and the prodigies from Earth to take my place there at last. I silently got myself worked up during this quiet early afternoon in a Chinese restaurant. I moved my touch mouse back and forth, and just as I brought up the display for the prominent, even on the moon, investment bank E.J. Rochberg, customers entered the store. I thought it was strange that customers would come in at this hour and raise my head. At that moment, a feeling ran throughout my body like an ice cube had just been stuck up my asshole. Ah, feck. Welcome. 2, please. Yes, sir. Table for 2. The woman said this in her usual carefree voice, but the words barely entered my ear. I lowered my cap even further over my eyes and hunched over, trying to hide the reflection in my PC display. Looking at their clothes, it was unmistakable. The pair who just arrived at the table on the other side of the restaurant were police officers on patrol. "I'll get the tenshin don." "Same here." "Very well, 2 tenshin." It seemed like they just chose this place randomly during their patrol, but who likes eating in the same restaurant as the cops? Not only that, I think these two were the ones who were at the Big Bull Cafe, according to my faint memory. The patrol route for police didn't include going into cafes, so someone had to have tipped them off somehow. I was not some sort of invisible man, so someone surely must have seen me hanging around a weird place at a weird time. Whoever that someone was, if they told the police that there was a shady-looking kid around, there'd only be a handful of places they'd search. It was totally possible that those two were looking for me. That might also be the reason that the policeman facing me was glancing at me now and then. But to think he'd take off and lead us on this wild goose chase. The policeman with his back to me suddenly spoke up. The cop looking at me waited a moment before replying to his partner. "Well, it was just some big shots looking at maps all day who decided how wide our area of jurisdiction was to be. And there wasn't any public survey system in that area either. But I think if he were hiding somewhere, it would have been in that net joint. The storekeeper there was a pretty sketchy looking guy. Maybe we should grab him and rough him up a little." "Don't judge by appearances. He ended up having a pretty impressive history, didn't he?" "Yeah, I guess. Man, I should have studied harder at the academy. Never thought I'd be assigned to the boonies like this." "Location has nothing to do with it. You just need to carry out your duties." "You're very right about that." So they really were looking for someone. But the owner, that Sirult guy, had an impressive history? I couldn't even imagine. What do we do after this? If we go by the book, we'd start the usual thing with questioning people. His coworker facing me took a sip of water and went quiet, as if in thought. I got the feeling he was taking a good hard look at me. In my mind, I was praying that they just gave up on their questioning and went back to their nest. If we call in for reinforcement, we're just going to get laughed at. Looks like we've got no choice. Anywhere our duty is in keeping public order. Cracks in public safety began in the smallest of places. Even if it's just one boy, we can't just let him get away. My heart felt like it might jump right out of my mouth. Now there was no mistake. They were tipped off by someone and were out looking for me. Lunar cities were nuts about keeping public order. Even in the Red Valley, where suspicious guys wandered the streets, there was not even the faintest trace of any real danger. It was just a degenerate, pleasure-seeking town. Everyone knew just how risky committing an act of physical violence was in a place this small. After all, if you were deported by the residential management court, there'd be no question that you'd never be able to come back. The only people exempt from that form of punishment were people who were born on the moon. Even then, if you committed second-degree murder or worse, it was not so certain. Of course, I wouldn't be subject to the penal code just because I ran away from home, but the overall zeal for maintaining public order would mean I'd be sent back home. After that, I'd probably be forced to report to a local facility every day until I became an adult. While that happened, I'd grow further and further away from the front line of the world and would eventually be swallowed up by the masses. I fixed my darting eyes on my hands and thought desperately, how should I escape from here? Oh, is there a choice coming up? If I grabbed my PC and ran, the plug would get in the way. Do I unplug the adapter from my PC and take off running with just the unit? My identity could be given away by the adapter, but it was still better than being captured. Or should I stay still right here and wait for them to leave? I'd like to do that if it's possible, but that officer staring at me seemed like he was about to stand up and shout, "Hey you!" at me at any moment. My cold sweat dripped onto my keyboard. Wait, that woman wouldn't have ratted me out, would she? As I thought of this possibility, I was tortured by desperate rage, but suddenly a shadow appeared on the table. It was that woman. More water? She poured me a refill. I cursed her in my heart, wishing that she wouldn't draw their attention towards me at a time like this, and my lowered face was totally flushed. but a piece of paper with the words written on it attached to the side of the cup a piece of paper with words written on it was attached to the side of the cup she clunked down on the table. Oh, I found the buzz! Ha 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 ha! Found the buzz! I found the buzz! This is so cool. You guys are gonna think this is great. See, my phone here, my phone's got NFC. And it's, where I put it is on my effects, is on top of my my equipment rack, and it's right above my Sound Blaster interface. So if I move it, come on, turn it on the screen. Come on. Recreate, damn it. Come on. It's off. Damn it. Oh, well, anyways, I'm going to move it anyhow. Pretty sure that was it. Get ready, said the note. I nearly raised my head, but the woman quickly left my table before I could make the mistake. I set my computer to mute and shut it down so they didn't notice that my OS was no longer running. I'll give up on the adapter. I quietly pulled the cord out of the main unit and confirmed the location of my bag. I already used the money I always kept in my jacket pocket at the cafe, so I'll use what I had in my back pocket. There was a line in an old Earth mafia movie that I saw at home that said a $10 bill kept in your clothes was a business card to God. It certainly kept you well prepared. I quietly placed a 10 mool bill in my hand, perked up my ears, and waited for the right timing. The policeman had been staring at me non-stop. He was definitely suspicious of me. With a clang, the policeman started to get up. Tenshin up! At that very moment, the Tenshin-dan was placed on the counter loudly. Huh? What's wrong? The cop called out to his partner, who was now halfway out of his seat. Is it the guy behind me? Right after he said this, the woman's voice rang energetically throughout the room. Thanks for waiting. Here's your Tenshin-dan. Oh, yeah. With his back to me, the one with his back to me turned his attention back to the food. The other one was looking at me, but because the woman was standing next to his corner seat, he was stuck in his seat and couldn't get out. Now was the moment. The woman looked at me. It was my only chance. I pulled my hat over my face, closed my PC with my head still down, grabbed it, and then shoved it into my bag. Your payment's on the table. I said this as Your payment's on the table. I said this as quietly as possible and left the 10 mool bill on the table. Hey, you, wait! The officer clearly told me to stop, but I just gave him a sideways glance as I walked quickly towards the exit. It was only a distance of 3 steps, but it felt like forever. The yelling officer attempted to chase after me, but with the woman in the way, he couldn't get out. Yeah! The shrill scream came from the woman who lost her balance after being pushed by the officer. She turned to the other officer, still looking in his chair. The piping hot Tenshin-dan looked like it was about to spill. Acting out of natural self-defense, the officer caught the bowl in his hands. By that time, I had successfully exited the store. I took off running as if nothing else in the world mattered. Where am I? I spoke to myself out loud to make sure that I wasn't in a dream. My throat was dry, though, so it was hard to speak. I cleared my throat a few times and took a deep breath. And the foggiest how I got here. After I left that store, I ran for my life towards the narrowest street I could find. I thought the police would be right behind me if I looked back, so I did nothing but run forward, not looking back a single time. After that, I must have found a handy-looking tunnel to hide in, and then fallen asleep inside it. The pain throughout my body must have been from sleeping in the same position the entire time. Is this a sewer? In general, any place made out of the moon's unique limestone was a public facility. This place had a cool, rough limestone floor, as well as matching walls. Between that and the sound of running water, this place had to be a sewer. Right then I noticed the slight glow around me. Is that from the exit? It seemed like I was nearly passed out, and while I had no idea how long I'd been asleep, it must be night by now. The fact that the lamps were lit made me certain of it. Slowly and carefully, I began to walk. Suddenly, the road turned into a dead end. I could see the light source on the other side of the wall that I now faced, which was even taller than me. What? I let out a quick gasp because it looked as though something on the ceiling had moved. But the only things there were strangely wavering lights and shadows. Like a small bug attracted to the light, I took my bag off and climbed the wall. Then, when I saw what was on the other side of the wall, I let out a much bigger gasp. Holy. Before me was a huge, spacious atrium. I was at the top part of the atrium, and I could see more passages on its opposite and right sides. However, the most amazing part was the waterway passing through the base of the atrium. Clear water flowed through it like gentle rapids, and most of the sound of water must have originated there. The bottom of the reservoir glowed a bluish color. Occasionally a fish would move, and its shadow on the ceiling would swim as well. As I gazed at the scene, amazed that places like this existed on the moon, I suddenly heard a rustling sound behind me. Or whatever that Metal Gear Solid sound effect was. Like, Metal Gear sound. Here we go. Here it is. There it is. That's the sound effect I needed. As I turned back in surprise, I forgot that I was balancing on the top of a wall. I immediately lost my balance and fell on my butt. Ow. All of a sudden, I saw a pitch black figure in front of me, rifling through my bag. Hey, what are you doing? Not only had my life's wages and labor gone into that PC, but it also carried the 1 billion mool dream that I knew I was going to make a reality. My body moved before I had even time to think, and I tackled the figure. I threw myself at the shadow, covering its face with my left hand and aiming for its throat with my right. It was a technique that an immigrant from Earth taught me when I was growing up in a village full of muscleheads. It was an incredibly effective technique, and it had to be. It was used by someone who came from a place where a failed government was replaced by military forces who had seized the UN food supplies to be used as aid, and would toss it around as if they were feeding animals. Because I was looking at the light coming from the waterway, my eyes still weren't used to the darkness. I've never played a single Metal Gear game in my life. The passage was narrow though, so I couldn't miss. Not only that, but my opponent was way weaker than I had thought, tumbling over as soon as I had connected. Right at that moment, I saw a small plank-like object fall onto the floor. The glowing object looked like it could be some kind of computer terminal. However, I was too busy thinking about punishing this idiot who was searching through my bag. On top of the bastard's body, who was either not resisting or too surprised to, I kept my grip on their throat and balled my other hand into the tightest fist I could make. Die! Jeez, dude. I froze, my fist still overhead. It's a Goyle! Of course. Huh. Neat. I raised my fist and was about to drop my iron hammer of fury. I began to speak. Woman? Yes, a woman can be a thief. She was going through your bag. Pummel her. Right then, my vision went dark. I only realized that I had been punched in the nose after I was woken up by being shoved on the chest into the side of the wall of the passage. Hitting me out of nowhere? What's wrong with you? The pitch black shadow, or rather, the pitch black woman, began to speak. Black hair, black eye. Okay, clearly not black eyes. Hello? Did we forget the script here? Black clothes. Black skirt. Not black clothes. This is clearly like some kind of olive color, and she's wearing a blue shirt. Even her stockings were... No, they're fucking not. God damn. Dressed in black from top to bottom, though she's not. Her white face seemed to float in the darkness. She stared at me with her thin black, again, not black eyes, as if she were staring at a bug. My head was seething, both from the shock of being punched and my anger at the outrageous situation. What the hell? You're the one who was going through my bag. What's wrong with you? That's not true. What would you do if this broke? The girl looked around. Then, while still sitting, she reached out her arms and grabbed the plank-like device that fell earlier. She brushed away the dirt and began to use it, probably to see if it still worked. But anyway, what kind of mentality would lead to someone verbally attack me after hitting... What? This is why I hated women? Okay, first off, most people would be verbally attacking you both before, during, and after hitting you. And second, what the hell does this have to do with women? I'm just doing this because I was asked to. Why do I have to be subjected to this? She seemed to mutter this to herself. Disheveled from the fall, she gathered her long black hair into a bundle of darkness in one hand and straightened it neatly in an instant. It looked like a cable harness. Found him. Hurry up and get here. I'm in the side passage on the top level. Still seated, the girl began to talk. That thing might also work as a communication device. Who in the world is she? Was she searching for me? Or was she interested in what I was carrying? If that were the case, then I wouldn't hold back. Thankfully, I was in a dark, deserted, and hard-to-see place. I might have lost the fight just now, but if I went at her with all my strength, I knew I could win. Maybe I should just take some naked pictures of her and post them online once I was done? What the fuck? This is a whole... Look, guys, people, friends, we've played some jackasses in the past, but this is a brand new breed of jackassery we're playing. Trevor, did you know about this? What the fuck? God damn. With that in mind, her arrogant attitude and expression might come in handy. Right as I went to move my back off the wall, I heard a voice. I hear you. Wait 1 minute, the floors get complicated around here. As soon as I heard the voice, I felt the dark urge in my chest disappear. I heard that voice before. It was the voice of the woman from the Chinese restaurant. Who allowed me to escape. Hurry up, Lisa. The girl spoke curtly into the terminal. I feel like I'm losing brain cells just being around this guy. I was dumbfounded for a moment and then glared at the girl. Good. Stupid. Oh, he gets better? That's literally his arc? Okay. Huh? The girl glanced at me, then quickly turned away. She acted as if she had heard a stray dog barking outside her window. She was clearly acting in the intolerable way that only women can, making it seem as though no insult or abuse hurled her way could possibly affect her. Well, not to put too fine a point on it, but when you hear a dog barking at you, do you bark back? While I was the type of guy to get really angry about when something I say is ignored, like a petulant child, I was not even enough of an adult to suppress my irritation. I kept glaring at her, not caring how lame I might be looking, and he was looking hella lame. Still glaring at her, I pulled my back towards me and made sure that nothing had been taken out. Nothing seemed wrong. Only there seemed to be something like a piece of dried macaroni at the bottom of my bag. It was partially metallic, and a small green rice-sized light was flickering on and off. It was a tracking device, is what it was. Don't bark back at the dog. It doesn't understand. Around the time that I figured out that it was a homing device, much like you'd use on a pet dog, I heard footsteps from the other side of the passage. The woman who appeared shortly after was unmistakably the one from the Chinese restaurant. While she was irritating, she also saved me. So this was Lisa. Phew, finally found you. I told you reception is bad around here, the girl in black replied. Yeah, but I found you. Took a little while though. The woman wiped her forehead, which made her finally realize that her hair was a mess. I'm amazed that you got all the way to a place like this. Were you here the whole time? While the woman talked, she took the flat device from the sitting girl. After inputting a few commands, the macaroni-shaped light in my hand stopped blinking and turned yellow. Is this a tracking device? Not answering the woman's question, I asked one back. Yep, I put it there when you were bending over to plug your adapter in. You were busy being charmed by my legs, so it was easy to do. I wasn't charmed by anything. Asswipe. This only caused the seated black-clad girl to shoot me a disdainful look over her shoulder. Well, I apologize for putting a homing device in your bag without asking. No matter what the reason, it isn't a nice thing to have happen to you. Her easily offered apology left me no room to complain. Only, there was no way that someone put a tracking device in someone else's bag could be an upstanding person. Considering this, I started to feel like her saving me at the restaurant might have been due to some ulterior motive. In any case, I was in the back corner of a deserted sewer. What I had just thought of doing in my rage to the annoying girl in black might now be done to me. Haha! The possibility of him being hoisted by his own petard. Haha. You see, geniuses and the rich were gathered in the lunar cities, and most of them could be called extremely talented. However, they often said that the line between brilliance and madness was paper thin. There was no shortage of stories along the lines of mad scientists performing unspeakable experiments on a nightly basis, or of wealthy perverts committing sickening acts one after the other. I look up at the woman, the shaking reflection from the water dimly reflecting upon her face, and she grabbed my bag with one hand. I was careful enough to spread my money across different pockets, so of course I carried at least a small weapon. But regardless of gender, the woman over there was taller than me. Gravity was weak on the moon, so if you thought about it as a simple action-reaction, there wasn't much difference here between a man and a woman's punches and kicks. In that case, if it came down to either wrestling or stiffening your body in one place and slamming it into your opponent while conserving as much physical energy as possible. Wait, what? In that case, it came down to either okay. That was where the length of your limbs made a difference. Not only that, there was someone right next to me who most certainly was not on my side. I recalled the atrium I just looked into. With my leg strength, couldn't I jump over the wall all the way over to the other side? Or if I made sure to land in the water, wouldn't I be okay? While my mind was whirring through the possibilities, I gulped and said the following. Why are you doing this? Was your saving me a trap? I wasn't sure if I should say that much, but before I could make a decision, the woman spoke first. The woman smiled as if she was stumped and bent her head to the side. She then continued, For fun? My back stiffened with a shudder. I had a feeling I was going to be killed. You gotta be kidding me. I still had dreams, and I just barely got into the starting line. I stood up and suddenly put all my strength into my thigh muscles. She spoke right as my body began to fly up. But I mean, you wouldn't want to get falsely arrested, right? Unable to drain all the strength in my thighs, my body floated as I hopped lightly backwards. With a slow, gentle trajectory, my back tapped against the wall. Wait, wrongly arrested? That's right. Those two officers were chasing after a boy, age 15 to 17, height around 160 centimeters, slender, black hair, black eyes, Asian features, wearing a black backpack. But isn't that him? The girl in black replied to this description. That's what I thought too, but after talking to them some more, I realized that it was someone else. I was slightly confused. When did I get asked that? That woman had known for a long time that I was a runaway. I'd been going in and out of that restaurant for a while. I had met her a number of times. Running away from home as a minor was technically against the law. While it was not something you'd be punished for, it was assumed that public order would be deteriorated by jobless, penniless minors wandering the streets, and so they're cracked down on. That's why the woman's words didn't make sense to me. Confused with my back still against the wall, I heard the woman let out a small sigh and continue to talk. Those two officers weren't looking for just some runaway kid. They were after a thief. Thief? That's right. But, well, considering his MO and the circumstances, I could see how someone like you could be suspect. Hearing this, I was reminded of how persistent the woman was when it came to the most random things. And that's why you wouldn't stop asking me whether or not I had had lunch. Exactly. The other day, someone stiffed a nearby restaurant on the bill. According to eyewitnesses, the suspect looked just like you as usual. But, well, I didn't think that someone who would order IU jelly with a carefree, satisfied expression on his face right after gobbling up a crab fried rice would do something like that, you know? The woman giggled as she said this. Slightly miffed, I glared back at her. I wouldn't do something dirty like that over something like 10 mools. Of course not. I checked with Sir Roll too. Oh, and I made sure to hold on to your change in your adapter. That made me feel a little relieved. The adapter was especially important. If you were smart enough, you could do just about anything with an electric appliance, so most purchases require showing personal identification. If my adapter were to get returned to the police's lost article, they'd figure out my identity in a snap. I heard that on Earth, even a child could anonymously buy parts that could easily be made into cutting-edge missile. That was a scary place. So, well, that's what's going on. You should come back to my place. I honestly could not understand what she was saying. What? Are you thinking of just going back to that cafe? I asked Sir Rold and he said that 4 stern-looking guys are taking turns patrolling the place. It was not a result that was hard to predict. Only, if that's the case, then I'd be back to sleeping on the hard ground of some deserted area. To be honest, doing that took a big toll on my body. Not being able to get a calm night's sleep was the worst part about this police patrol. As far as getting sleep, the Big Bull Cafe had a roof and running water. If you said that you wanted to pay the premium fee, you'd get the sense of security that came with knowing that you'd be alerted if something dangerous started to go down. The question was whether or not that's a reason to just jump on an invitation of some suspicious woman who put tracking devices in people's bags for fun. Even in stock trading, a too-good-to-be-true balance sheet was sometimes used to prime the pump right before a huge crash. It's true. In terms of looking at businesses, if their profit and loss sheet looks too clean, you probably don't want to invest. I understand why you might be suspicious, but I just told you, right? It's like a hobby for me. The woman told me this as I remained doubtful. Bringing runaways like me into your home was a hobby? Either she was a pervert with some bizarre hobbies, or could it be my charm? Fucker, you ain't got no charm. I think I basically know what you're thinking, but the woman then laughed in amazement. Unfortunately for you, boys younger than me aren't my thing. Unless they're holding giant blood-soaked scissors? Quoi? Well, then what? What are you after? Is it money? As soon as I said these words, a smile disappeared from the woman's eyes. Did she just get mad? Just from that? While I had the feeling I'd already said a lot of other things that should have made her angry, I was still surprised at the sudden change. Watching my face, the woman must have realized the change in her own expression. Oh, I'm sorry. She spoke in a forced tone, then rubbed the area around her eyes gently with both hands. This completely disarmed and confused me. Not only that, I was faced with the grim reality of not having any place to go. The woman in front of me allowed me to escape from the restaurant, so in that sense I owed her a lot. I'm sure it's a reference, Cherba, I just don't know what.
I then concluded that aside from the part about being a runaway, I did consider myself a decent human being, so I should probably reply with something like this. If I do end up being a burden on you, I won't be able to pay much, you know. While I'd realized that she wasn't especially interested in my money, I still had enough decency to feel bad about not paying someone who took care of me. That's why I said what I said. But would she understand? Not Doki Doki, Jay. This is a completely different game. This is World End ECONOMiCA Part 1. Episode 1. Yeah. As I kept staring at the woman, she finally grinned and nodded. Of course, I'll take a little for food or other costs, but it should still be a lot better than wandering around outside. Oh, and the woman continued. I don't know if it's a reference to Doki Doki, I don't know. After all, I took care of Siralt too. Huh? Nothing you should worry about. So, what will you do? There's nothing else I could do. There was only one way I could answer. We have yet to make a choice in this game, by the way. Thanks. You should be more honest and just say that from the beginning. The woman continued to smile as she said that, but I told her in my head to be more reasonable. Okay, then let's go back. If it gets much later, I won't have a good excuse to give to the police. Hearing the word police, I nodded, once again recognizing the precarious situation I was in. However, while both the woman and I tried to set off, there was someone who wouldn't budge an inch. It was the girl dressed in black, which she's not. While I wasn't sure if she was listening to my conversation with the woman or not, she had an absent-minded look on her face. That is not an absent-minded look. That is a very determined look. What are you doing? The woman asked. It was a very pertinent question. The girl, still not answering, turned her head and stared my way. Her utterly conceited expression immediately reminded me of the irritating argument I just had with her. What? I said this to her with a voice full of anger. I knew that my remark would be ignored or snubbed, but she was being so upsetting that it just came out that way. As I expected, the girl turned away snootily, with all the annoying elegance of some sort of princess. Hagana, you're not trying to throw a tantrum like some child, are you? All right, jeez. Wait. My big complaint is that, like, okay, you could say that this is, you know, it's black, but it looks like this way because of lighting. But they also say in the text that that her eyes are black, and they're very not black. You know. Hagana, you're not trying to throw a tantrum like some child, are you? The woman used the name Hagana to refer to the girl. Still snootily turned away, the girl called Hagana gave no reply. With this, I was roughly able to guess what was going on. The woman yeah, that is dumb. That's what I'm saying, yo. With this, I was roughly able to guess what's going on. The woman inviting me to her house most likely meant that I would be living under the same roof as this obnoxious girl named Hagana. Naturally, I was upset that I'd been openly rejected by her, but taking a step back, I suppose I could understand how Hagana felt. This put me at a bit of a loss. Should I get angry, or should I respond like an adult? Only this wasn't the time or place to dawdle. As I was about to say that I didn't even mind sleeping in the garden, she spoke first. I can't stand up. What? Hagana looked up at the woman who replied to her and continued. I can't put any strength into my hips. It's because he tackled me. Hagana looked at me as she said this. The woman looked at me. You tackled her? Really? I vaguely recalled something like this happening in kindergarten or elementary school. Teacher so-and-so tackled someone or another. But I was not one to use violence without a reason. If the girl in black looked over in response to a sound and saw someone searching through her own bag, wouldn't she have done the same thing? Right as I went to say this, I'm faced with the fact that I had tackled a delicate girl, and began to realize that I had done something that was hard to make an excuse for. Women are such unfair creatures. I cursed the black-clad and white-skinned Hagana as a shrewd tactician. I guess so. Wait, no, but, well, I can imagine the situation. In that case, in a fight, both parties are to blame. The woman said this, then pointed at Hagana. Hagana looked at the tip of the finger as if it were covered in some kind of sweet syrup. If you can't walk, then have him carry you on his back. The woman pointed her finger towards me. Still attracted by the finger, Hagana's gaze shifted to me. Wait, how was that punishment for both of us? That doesn't make sense. While I protested, the woman raised her eyebrows ever so... Okay, you don't have to call her the woman. You know her name. It's Lisa. Ever so slightly, as if to insist that I listen to her. This was blatant favoritism, I thought. After all, the person that says she has to be carried must also... I began to think, then realized... in a fight, both parties were to blame. Okay, hurry up if you understand. This wasn't just any ordinary woman. Hagana also made a face as though she had come to some sort of realization, then nodded. I sighed, put my bag on my front side, then walked up towards Hagana. She was sitting down, so her face was in a somewhat erotic position. Ugh, Christ. Hagana hadn't made particularly expressive face to begin with and stared up at me motionlessly. Sadistic desires began to well up in me, thinking I'd feel a lot better if I slapped the side of her face as hard as I could. Churba, how much of a shitbag is this guy? However, I felt as though if I dwelt on these thoughts for too long, I might actually slap her. So I quickly crouched down and turned my back to her. I wasn't sure how long it'd take, but living under the same roof as her seemed like it'd be a pain. At least until the friction between us settled down, I should avoid any potential points of conflict. Come on, Hagana, turn your arms, that's right. I tried to give Hagana, who seemed to be telling the truth about not being able to stand, a hand in climbing on my back. Hagana's thin arms This is like the part of the Bible where it's all begats. Like, it's okay to give, like, articles, you know? Pronouns. Yeah, definitely not for the family tree of Guy, for sure. Hagana's thin arms wrapped around my neck and then stiffened awkwardly. Actually, it seemed like this girl had never climbed on someone's back. Hagana, you're not going to be dangling from his neck, you're getting on his back. The woman explained after a bit of silence. Hagana shifted her weight onto my back. Finally, too small but soft. Oh, for God's sake. As I was responsible for carrying her, I wrapped my arms around the bottom of Hagana's thighs, filled thighs, so this was thighs and... Okay, stand. Another part of me nearly oh my God. Okay. I had been skipping my resistance training, so I could pretty easily carry up to around 5 times my weight. One slender girl was practically nothing to me. Oh, you're stronger than I thought. The praise didn't feel too bad. Alright, then let's go. The woman began to walk. I tried to follow behind her, but Hagana stopped me. Wait. The woman turned back and we both looked at Hagana's face. Hers was right next to mine. Suddenly, I smelled something sweet and fruit-like for a moment. What is it? The woman replied. Hagana raised her head a little while still on my back and replied quietly. He really stinks. The woman looked blankly at Hagana, then at me. A strange, cheerful smile began to appear on her face. In a fight, both parties are to blame. Ha! I'm gonna make her bow down to me one day. At that moment, I added another item to my list of ambitions. Yeah, I definitely think he will not. It seems as though the place I had tumbled into after running like mad wasn't a sewer, it was more precisely a reservoir. As Newton City was designed to gather everything, including people, water, and wealth, if there happened to be a problem with the city's water circulation facilities, there was fear that the low-lying Newton City could flood. For that reason, there were apparently 2 additional layers of facilities for long-term water storage. So that water went from the outer sections to Green City, then from Green City to Newton City. While I didn't know the first thing about this, I did know I was in a place with an incredibly fantastic atmosphere. And that was why other towns generally forbid entry into these reservoirs. It's because couples like that get together. It's because couples that get together tend to be drawn towards places like that. I nodded in agreement with this observation. I didn't know the place had an incredibly fantastic atmosphere. The towns generally forbid entry into the other one. Together, be drawn to places like that. Okay. What time is it? 10:48. Not too much longer then, eh? Also, this area seemed to be quite a low-income neighborhood, even by the standards of the 6th outer section. And it was full of homes on the verge of collapsing, even here on the gravity-weak moon. Even so, the many lights in the town made it easy to recognize... Yeah, okay. Even so, the many lights in the town made it easy to recognize that lots of people lived here. For a town in the outer sections, this one was relatively old, apparently used to be more lively in the past. As it was also night, there was almost nothing there related to liveliness. Actually, it looked like a scene out of some children's tale from long, long ago. This place wasn't a reality, but rather ruins from the real world overlapping with the glory days of the past. That was how the place looked to me. But every once in a while, someone would go out to the eaves of their homes under the imitation stars projected on the dome and amuse themselves by drinking alcohol or by playing a game of chess or Go. It may have been a poor area, but it also seemed incredibly safe. They say that it was an old town, which must have meant that its residents had stopped developing the area. Newton City had developed at a rate that threatened to surpass even the most advanced nations on Earth, so some of the people that had been attracted to it worked so hard that you could refresh the list of humanity's richest people and see changes every day. To put it another way, the people who decided not to compete became comparatively poorer by the day. Getting poorer under capitalism meant that you're being forced that much further back in the big race. Not only that, I didn't want to become one of the masses, but if I failed, then I'd end up like one of those people. Haganah had finally stopped calling me smelly. I rearranged her position on my back, then asked myself a question sternly. Are we still not there yet? No matter how light they may be, people aren't the easiest things to carry on one's back. Especially when it's a girl you're carrying. You have to watch where you're putting your hands. Hearing my question, Lisa looked over her shoulder and nodded lightly. As I sighed, thinking that we still had more to go, Lisa's feet suddenly stopped. We're here! Hearing those words, I stopped my feet and raised my head. I wonder what kind of rundown hut we'd arrived at, but to my surprise, I was facing an impressive gate. She's rich! Actually, wasn't this a bit too impressive of a gate? 2 meters? 3 meters? Wait, more importantly, wasn't this... I stood so dumbfounded that I forgot that Haganah was on my back. Lisa put a hand on the gate and slowly pushed it open. It didn't even seem to be locked. But considering what this place was, I could understand. Standing in front of me was a building that I had only ever heard of before. Sheltering people is my hobby. Do you see why now? She opened the double doors and walked in. Next thing I knew, a bearded dude stuck on a cross was right in front of me. It's a church! She lives in a church! Welcome to 6th Avenue Church. She don't look like no nun I ever seen. That's a habit I wouldn't mind starting, but You're a Christist? A Christian? What's the big surprise? I thought this was something they only did on Earth. Oh, please. You get a rocket and there'll be religion coming along, flying on along with it. This is supposed to be a place on the forefront of science and human advancement. Why was there a church here? Or could it be that for people from Earth, this place far away in the sky was supposed to be heaven? As I looked at Lisa as if she were some exotic animal. She gave a slightly embarrassed grin and shook her head. Well, I suppose you would say that, but don't worry, I'm not going to try to convert you or anything. Huh. After a long silence, all I could manage was a puff of laughter through my nose. Wait, well, you didn't notice that cross from the beginning? I just assumed that there were religious people on the moon too. I just assumed there'd be religious people on the moon. Religious people are everywhere. Whatever. According to my faith, all I'm to do is let lost sheep rest for a short time. It's the same thing for that girl on your back. I'd already forgotten I was carrying Hagana. Hey, we're here, so I'm gonna let you down. Hurry up and let me down. I felt a flash of anger, but since I was holding on both of her legs, I figured in the end it was a very natural thing to say. Though I don't know anybody who wears a cross just for the sake of wearing one. I've literally never met anybody who's worn a cross just for the sake of wearing one. Okay, I mean, I don't know a lot of porn actors, so you know. Though I was overwhelmed by the temptation just to let her go like an ass, I bent my knees slowly and let her down, 1 foot at a time. Jeez, she looks fucking pissed. You can stand? Hagana was silent, but she seemed to be amazed that she was standing. What a strange woman. So, what were we saying? Oh, so she's a runaway too? Right. Same idea with Sir World. This place is a crossroads, and so according to the teachings, I have a bucket for washing feet and a cup of cold water ready to give. Feet and water. I made a face as if to say, what is this woman even talking about? She's talking about how Jesus washed the feet of the poor. Anyways, Lisa saw it, and instead of getting angry, she breathed a disappointed sigh. Do you happen to be born and bred on the moon? Yes, but so what? After I asked this back at her, Lisa shook her head, disappointed. Was she making fun of me? Was that what it was? As I glared at her, Lisa looked towards the statue of the dude stuck on the cross, placed her hands together and bowed her head. Oh Lord, you have brought upon me a great trial. Then, as she said this, she made a strange gesture with her right hand in front of her body. I wonder what particular sect she's part of. As I wondered what she was doing, Lisa faced me and began to speak. For now, why don't you take a bath? I'm not trying to be Hagana, but you are a little dirty. Being told this to my face was actually a bit embarrassing. Well, I'm sorry. As I said this, trying to hide my embarrassment, Hagana, who had been watching the situation quietly, picked up where Lisa left off. In fact, you smell terrible. After that, I began to be especially conscious about my own body. That day, I realized that I was at a far more emotional and innocent age than I had thought. Nope, we are going to stop here. And save. Boop. Okay, so let's go to the main menu here. Boop. All right, folks. So that was a bit about 2 hours of World End Economica episode 2. Will we be playing this game next week? No. I like you guys know, I like my games. I like to play games with choices. I like to feel that I'm doing something other than just clicking next the entire time. While I'm definitely going to keep playing this game on my own because, you know, Churba likes it. He's a man of taste. No, I'm kidding. He's a man of good taste. So I'm going to, you know, I take his endorsement seriously. I'm going to keep playing it on my own. Next week, however, we are going to play, apparently, based on what we've got right now on the Victor Plays, on the Victor Plays. Wait, I have eaten a part of Churba? What? Wait, what did you guys hear? Wait, hold on. What did you guys hear? Because he's a man of great tastes. Yes, he's a man of great taste. Not great tastes. Anyways, Churba's a man of great taste, so I take his recommendation seriously. I will play this on my own. I will not, however, play it on the stream. Next week, what we are going to play based on what is on the queue. Transubstantiation jokes never fail. Although I had to explain, my mom apparently had never heard the term transubstantiation. I had to tell her what that was. So that was an interesting conversation. Next week on the Victor Plays, how cool the banner ad shows. Nice. How do I, let's see, here we go. Interact. Can I scroll this? No, I can't. Height. Here, nope. That apparently is not enough. There we go. Aha. Next game, based on the voting that we've got right now on the Victor Plays interactive game queue, we've got Sound of Drop, Fall into Poison, which is, if you guys want to play along, is apparently 55% off this week on the Steam sale, on the Steam store. It's $5.84 at present. Churba and I both own this game. Natch. And it's being published by Sekai Project. So, yeah, nestled in the heart of Tokyo, a quaint little aquarium, Manton Aquarium, numerous urban legends have arisen from here. On the night of the full moon, the water turns to blood, and a man-faced fish lurks with it. A man-faced fish lurk within. I still need to watch Spice and Wolf. I don't know if it's... I don't know, I watched like one episode like 7 or 8 years ago or something. You know, long time ago. So yeah, next week right now we're looking at Sound of Drop, Fall into Poison. Check that out if you want to play along. Wow, the minimum system requirements of this is ridiculously low. Pentium 3, 1 gigahertz, 512 megabytes of RAM, Windows XP. Funky. Oh, it's SteamOS compatible. Huh, neato. Yeah. So, blah. Anyway, so that is it. It is now time for us to do the thing that which we do, and we are happy to do it. And that is to thank our Patreon supporters. Yes, our Patreon supporters, the people who throw a little bit of money into the hat each month. One for helping make this channel chooch. Their support allows us to maintain an Adobe Creative Cloud subscription, which is incredibly important. I'm running Adobe Audition right now to pipe this audio. It lets me do fun things, like actual audio engineering. Also lets me do really cool
things like this.
Or this. No, this. Just generally having a good time.
But also doing actual engineering-y type stuff. Oh yes, so thank you to Kate Macross, Rochelle Mantanona, Geek Nights Podcast, Funeral Cleavage, Jay Bance, our newest Patreon supporter, Dexter Colder, George Davison, our longest running Patreon supporter, Zara Gorgian, Aaron Cerise, Ethan Fryer, Pinup Citizen, Gina Moreno, and Yodel. So, thank you to all of them. Oh, good gracious. And thank you for their continued support. If you would like to support this channel, I refer you to the Patreon link in the description and in the YouTube card up here somewhere. If you click the little eye icon, you can get the link to the Patreon like that. Or alternatively, you could make a one-time contribution by doing something like a super chat, which is really, you can pay for having your chat be like, wah, ba-da. You can pay anywhere from, you can do anywhere from $1 to $500. But please don't do $500. If you're giving me $500 in a super chat, I really hope you're donating money to charity, like a lot. That like giving $500 in a super chat is something that's just so easy for you. So yes, super chats are a great way to do one-time contributions. And that is it for this stream tonight. We've got Acceptable Vices coming up this oh wow, I'm just tired. This Friday, Friday the 10th. Next week, there will be no show on Friday, because I've got Anime California on that Saturday, and I do like to get plenty of rest before conventions. Anime California, where I will be performing. I gotta look up the thing, the email. I know what I'm doing there, I think. Where I will be performing The Wonderful World of K-Cars, Moe on Wheels, on Saturday at 10 a.m. in LP1. I will be doing Doki Doki Choose Sound in Anime. Oh wait, that's actually later on. Hacking Doki Doki Literature Club. It's a workshop. I'll be doing that from 1 o'clock to 2:30 in LP4, the Burbank room, and in LP2 at 3 o'clock. They have these all in military times. At 3 o'clock, from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock, I'll be doing Doki Doki Choose Sound in Anime in LP2, the Glendale Ballroom. So, if you are around, if you are going to be in the LA area, if you're coming to Anime California, please do pop in, watch the live performance. If you end up being there, stop in and say hi. I'd love to meet ya. And that is that. And with that, I say good night, and good night. Victor Plays is a Frostwork production. Frostworks, we produce eclectic, educational, and entertaining media. For more information, visit www.frost.works.